about 4 or 5 times to get a giant or a tiny ball that hovers. The only thing we see of this is just magnets. When you turn one upside down, the other one can go above it. So we're adding those two aspects. How realistic could this get? All fresh when I picked them, and out of the bunch you start seeing some of them squill out a little bit early. And that's just one ability. If you fly around inside a little ball, you could, and then come out of it. Or you can just make a little puddle anywhere and jump out of it, and the puddle could be like so slim you wouldn't see it half the time because it's just horizontal on its surface. So unless you're like 5 feet away from it, you wouldn't even see the puddle. But if you could make a puddle anywhere and jump out of it, all it is partial condension and full out compression. All it is the difference from this earlier where it was firm to it having the bad ones get more loose. That's essentially what this is. This guy has his gun, and that's how he makes his puddle. But other wraiths, like Noob Saibot, they just make their puddle without a gun, and they are able to jump out of it. And that's why it entered the body of Kenshi in Mortal Kombat. He's like this blind guy, but then he got possessed by a demon. So like he's part ghost, part human. And so he can push like his ghost body outside of himself and use it to partially like do a body slam, but it's not a full out body slam because once again, ghosts are just like light energy and it basically goes through stuff unless it's really like focused. I should start a little bit slower. It's just like a butterfly going into a cocoon and leaving it, but if that cocoon was able to like move around like a frisbee and go in any direction at any time, but they could choose when they leave the cocoon and come out. It's like Iron Man if he gets stuck in his Iron Man suit and then that's his cocoon that, you know, kind of got him where he couldn't come back out. If Sub-Zero, a guy who's good with like cold, he can like make ice come out of his hands if he wants to. He's like not human, he's part like a race that is good with ice. If he could make himself turn into a snowball and that snowball could fly around and zip around, it would be no different than like that size. And then he would just come back out from that. The ghost line. Yeah, specifically, an orb is like the ghost flying around, but then it can come back outside of its orb and take like a human shape, and it would be a wraith. It was flesh, but ghosts, they're just like energy, and so like you can just punch them and it would go right through them. So that's why the ghost needs to enter like a humanoid body in order for it to have like any substantial ability to fight in a Mortal Kombat. And when a thing is not sold separately, you'll just have to buy the whole unit in order to redact the certain place or placement of the object. Why can you go from like a energy like light ball into like a liquid ball? How does that even happen? Well, to them it's no different than if I wanted like a earbud plastic tip to put at the end of my earbud. Ostensibly I could just carve one out of here, but I don't have the right tools. But that's all it would be. It's just a bit different. And this actually would stick in my ear probably better than the the rubber earbud tips. So to them it would be no different if the ball was liquid or made out of like a energy light ball, like a light bulb. That liquid ball, it could be like flying around just like a frisbee, how you throw it and it glides. Our airplanes were stuck on that aerial transversal, where when you're in the air you can only glide like a plane or a frisbee. But saucers of aliens, they can like fly around and make different motions easily. That's what, like, if a white orb, if you've ever seen one on like a camera footage, like a clone of a reptile. A reptile is a ninja humanoid. Just as like with your ID, if scanner might not work, so you have to type it in manually, when that's how wraiths look at life. Like they don't ever die from an old age. So when they say like 74, they'll be like, oh, 74 again, or the store forever 21. Some wraiths are in like where they can't get the vitamin D out of their skin to perspirate it on a different level of so they'd be like stuck at forever 21 would be like a skin condition that they had. And if a little liquid ball is flying at you, it could look something different than like a white energy ball, which people say they see orbs, but this ball would be like more liquidy. Like in Harry Potter, they had the flying snitch, and it was essentially just like a gold metal ball. But a liquid ball could be like a reptile flying it around, and then it would form a humanoid out of the ball, like in a blink of the eye. And since wraiths move normal, if you ever see something flying at you that's liquid and a ball, that could be a different form of a wraith. So I'm not a nerd, but I do appreciate the different races that the Lord of the Rings covered. The Lord of the Rings is essentially just like this hobbit, I guess, is a miniature, like a midget, but it doesn't have like its body out of shape. It's just a smaller skeleton of a human. This hobbit finds the ring, but then these wraiths come after him. The original maker of the ring, or who first had it, was this like 11-foot wraith named Sauron. And the only image of him, you saw him inside his armor, was so big it was just like an Iron Man suit where it covers his whole body. So you didn't really get to see his skin, but this 11-foot guy, it's like in the Bible, there's an 11-foot guy named Goliath. But this guy wasn't a man, he was a wraith, which was Sauron, and wraiths have like black skin. And so when you have black skin, you're a wraith. Like if you're not human. And so, but we didn't get to see his skin because of his armor, and the other race coming after the Hobbit who got the ring, they all had these like cloaks over them. So when they didn't have their cloaks over them, they rode on a dragon, I guess, or horseback. So they can't run that supernatural fast, but them being that tall, their skin would be black. And Noob Saibot is in Mortal Kombat, he's a wraith, and his skin is totally black, and that's what my skin looked like in the morning, like in a shadow when I did that. So my skin is burnt like to a certain prescribed percentage. So if I could alleviate that and put the vitamin D or whatever that made my skin dark in other places, I would do that. But right now I'm stuck with my skin being dark until it turns back to a different color. Dark is kind of matte. Whenever you see like a matte car, that's like the skin of a wraith if it were black. And then just when you're at high speeds, at high rate, the gradual change is so subtle that someone going at 70 miles per hour next to you and they're passing you, it seems like they're just walking past you, but at high rate, it's a lot different. And then when you have singularities, they're in every position, and singularities are at high rate because they weigh so much. Anything coming close to them gets obliterated by the black hole around them. So that's why they seem at high rate. So at any point around them is going to look really interesting gradually. Looks like the peacock that had the big thing in the back. Lights through the trees polarize when it spins. Because they always say if the converse is true, what's the super converse? Well, the person who has the immunity of the man-made item would get to say what it is if it controlled the land. What a position. If something is man-made, that means that it can be turned on and off like a light switch. When you have full immunity, that means that you can have the right to do whatever you have immunity over with zero repercussions until you use it too much, and then at that point you'll be thrown under the bus, you'll be capsized. In Chicago, they order attorneys, where if you order too many attorneys, well, now you get $20 extra, and that's just extra slack that everyone has to throw around. Well, if you do that the first time, why wouldn't you do that every time? Each year, hire more attorneys than necessary, and you get to go on vacation and have some free stuff just because you did. To you, it would be a mistake by accidentally ordering more attorneys, but to the attorneys, it would be, well, I got lucky because they made a mistake, or else I wouldn't have been an attorney. Or this could be an eternity for someone off your mistake, where they got a wrong attorney that shouldn't have been hired, and they made a decision which put them in shambles for the rest of their life, committing a crime that was wrongly accused of them by a bad attorney. You see how that little mistake could be on or off depending on, a man-made system is the justice system, but a man-made anything could be such stuff as Frodo's ring when he put it on. We don't see from his point of view what it is. Sauron was able to see him, and he was the only person who could see him. What if Frodo turned into like a orb that was light and zipping around? What if that's all the ring did? It was allow you to be a little orb. Who knows? And why it's no different than your DNA is that your DNA can get loose as well. The tips of your DNA are called telomeres, and when they get too short, it looks no different than one of these that are not as stable as they should be, such as little parts of differentiations that chipped off too early. It could be invisible until it had like something near it inside of the room be like a foliage of some algae color. And it's just the more that you can understand a phase change, the better it's gonna be. It's cheap, but now it just has lemons in it, and that's why it was homemade, because it was coming out